I like to start recording when I have somebody in the middle of a really
Of a sentence.
complicated, well-expressed thought,
That's
and then
good.
tell them, that was really good. Could you start over? Wait,
Could you say that
first,
again?
hey, it's Anna Campbell right there. Anna Campbell is the voice of a lot of stuff. And in addition to being a lovely and amazing human, she's an
Oh,
actress. She's an artist. And she's brought a lot to the table. We're going to get into it. But yeah, you know her from Ash from Apex Legends. But that's the tip of the
it's just
iceberg,
a,
is
it's the
what it
tip,
is.
just the tip.
But in the auditioning world, they say give it a little pre-life before you read. Give it a little
Yeah,
pre-life, a
yeah, yeah.
little ramp up into the line so it feels like it's happening. Well, we had like a good 15-minute pre-life to this interview. We just wanted to talk about stuff and then
Yeah,
get into it.
life.
But
Set the stage.
what you were sharing with me is how grateful you are to have had the career you've had so far.
Yeah. No, well, look, I feel like so I moved to Los Angeles to date myself in 2002. And I'm currently living in Oregon with sort of a foot in both markets, worlds. I don't know how you put
Hmm.
that exactly. Because since the pandemic, it's changed where you need to be for anything to happen. So
Right.
it was a decision we made for my family more than anything, but we also are able to go back and forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we one of the things that brought up that conversation in the first place was the idea that there's no certainty in this industry, right? You could be
No.
hip one day and like gone the next. I was just reading about a car crash with an actress. I was like, my God, I haven't heard that name in 15 years,
Yeah.
and someone who can be huge and important one day can be completely nothing the next. And
Right.
when my dad, who's a business lawyer, said to me at year 8, it's okay, you're going to be okay, it takes 10 years to build a solid career, and I was like, Daddy, it might never happen. Right? Like, there's no rhyme or reason to this whatsoever. Like, I'm plenty cute enough, I work harder than anybody else in the world, and it may still just not happen.
Yeah.
um like, and that's fine. You have to have, for me, the only way through it is a completely positive attitude, like like how lucky am I that I get to pursue my dream
Right.
at 40 something years old, right? Instead of having to have stopped and done something else to pay the bills. Like, I
Yeah.
can't complain. I can't complain.
No, I mean, well, as the saying goes, you could, but who
I
would
could,
listen?
right. I
Right.
totally
I
could. Yeah. And
oh,
sometimes I do.
I could give you a list of things that happened to me or that I didn't want to have happen, and
Yeah.
no one is obligated to care.
Yeah.
It's that they all have their own list. We've all got our own list.
Oh, that's totally fair. And I do think, look, there were things in the industry that I encountered long before the Me Too movement where I
Yeah.
was just like flat out, oh no, that's not who I am. That's not how I do this. That's not how I'm going to
Right.
approach my career. Thank you very much for attempting to sleep with me in that context. But I don't believe that's going to turn into a job. And I'm not joking. Like, I was
No,
warned.
I
I was
laugh.
warned.
I
It's
laugh
true.
because, frankly, it is it is all too predictable that I hear this story that I understand. My wife was in the music industry,
Yeah.
and she oh my God, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been
Yeah. No,
around
it's a real
forever.
thing. And it feels really, really, really good to talk about it mildly retrospectively. And mostly we are. And we can certainly call out behavior that we no longer do
Yeah.
officially put up with in a very different way than you could when I started in the
Right.
industry. But I'll never forget a year into being in Los Angeles being warned never specifically to
Hmm.
go to a hotel room with Harvey Weinstein.
Oh yeah.
That was where you drew the line. Of course, you schmooze him up. Of course, you talk to him at the party. Of course, you give him your number, but you don't go to the hotel room. And the idea that that was that specific 20 years ago was
Right.
how much we knew about the way the industry worked. And so I do find myself wondering, had I played more of those games, would I be further? But then I wouldn't like myself. So who cares?
Right.
Right?
And you look at some of the actresses that did quote unquote play those games, and are
Exactly.
they in a place you would even want to be?
That's
Are they in
correct.
a place they would want to be?
You give
So
somebody else all of that power and they
yeah.
have it, right? You
Right.
no longer are in control of your own destiny.
Right.
And and look, I want to be really clear about this because I've had amazing luck in the industry. Like, I've had the good people around me,
Yeah.
and I've had the ability to change representatives and and make choices for myself, and never felt like I was in a dangerous situation I couldn't get out of.
Right.
Was in dangerous situations, but not that I couldn't get out of.
Right.
And so I feel like, the idea of that free will and autonomy worked well for me, but I mean, it was a dangerous place, and
Yeah.
I'm delighted to see it changing, and I'm delighted that I didn't have to sacrifice myself in order to
Yeah.
get the thing that I wanted,
Yeah.
so no
And I
complaints.
don't I know I came out here as a stand-up comic in 97, but
Mm-hmm.
I had done some acting, and I studied a little bit of theater in college, and I had the idea that I was going to do stand-up and acting and try and, get a development deal, get on a show.
Yeah.
I wanted what everybody else wants. I wanted to be
You wanted it
successful and
all.
famous,
Yeah.
all of that. But the stories I would hear, which ever since you were a kid, you would see, if you grew up watching the same shows from the 60s and 70s that I did, they would joke about casting couches as part of the show. They would
Yeah.
talk about, if Hollywood is ever mentioned in a show, it was known that sometimes that's what a producer would want from an ingenue. And
Yeah.
you grew up just sort of accepting that, well, this is an ugly part of the business. And I also
Yeah.
grew up realizing that, well, a lot of times actresses are judged by whether or not they took that opportunity. And as I got older, I realized, you know what? You know how desperate you feel sometimes just to make rent because you're eating ramen
Oh
noodles.
yeah.
I
Oh
decided
yeah.
I was not going to judge any actress that ever took that opportunity
One
because
thousand percent.
I can't walk in their shoes. I can't walk in their 6-inch pumps that they hate wearing.
Yeah. No, 1,000. I'm so with you on that one, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're lucky that the world is changing, right? We're lucky.
Yeah.
I'm the mom of two small girls. I'm delighted.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. The country's trying to do some backsliding on some of these opportunities.
It's
But
half of the
I'm just
ship is
gonna
rowing
point that out.
furiously. The other half is
Yeah.
poking holes in the bow.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very strange, and you understand that, right? As soon as something changes drastically in a way that people don't
There's a
understand or feel
reaction to
comfortable
it.
with, there's a harsh reaction,
Yeah.
right? So we're gonna get back to a place of, women have any autonomy at all. But I would much rather be raising two girls in a world that has awareness
Yeah.
and can be blunt about, the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a world where we're pretending we're all okay while we're like sobbing ourselves to sleep,
Yeah.
because we've been there, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you see the careers of name actresses. The name that sticks out the most to me is Mira Sorvino. Because
Mhm.
Mira Sorvino, I saw in Mighty Aphrodite, thought
Mhm.
she's fantastic. She deserves the Oscar she wins for that. She starts making movies that do okay at the box office. She has respect. She has a little bit of financial pull now in the industry. And then you just, like you said, you turn around one day and you realize, wait, whatever happened to her? And then she
Crickets.
basically tells you, this is what happened to me. I didn't want my career to suddenly go on the back burner. It got put there because of literally one man.
Yeah.
And you think, she won an Oscar. Her dad is a known
Yeah.
name in the industry. She had
Hollywood
people that-
royalty. Yeah.
Yeah. And she couldn't get arrested. She got shoved to the side, and it's because one guy. And I thought, this isn't the 30s when a studio head could end you because they literally owned your contract. This is the free market here. Nope, it can still
No.
be that way.
No, and I'm sure this, I want to be clear. I'm sure this happens for men as well, right? But
Yeah.
there's something about the way that it happens
Brendan
to women
Fraser.
in particular.
Yeah.
Perfect example,
Yeah.
right? But we always sort of like relate that back to his behavior or being difficult. Not in the case of Brendan Fraser. I've never
Yeah.
heard anything mean about him. Maybe you have, I don't know.
No, I never have.
But never, right? And so I guess to me it's sort of like there's this weird still, sort of double standard and expectation of what we're expected to frankly put out, right?
Yeah.
What we're expected to offer on the table,
Right.
as women, that's different from men. But again, I do think that that's changing, and watching the rise in women as directors and watching the rise in people of color and all of these,
Right.
amazing roles and opportunities. I do feel like we're finally addressing the inequity, but we're doing it in this sort of like, no, right now, all of it needs to change. And it's confusing,
Yes.
right? It's just,
Yes.
it's like, oh, okay. And there was a show that got canceled, and the creators of the show blamed it on, I'm going to be very careful not to say enough because I think it was just a really interesting story to me. They blamed it on a lack of support for the ethnic group that the show primarily focused on.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, I watched an episode of your show. two things. One, it didn't speak to me, and that's because you were very specifically speaking to the group. So you weren't making a show for a large mass. You weren't making a show for a specific group.
Yeah.
And B, it sucked. Like you didn't have a clue what you were doing. The script made no sense. Your characters were underdeveloped, right? And so I do think that one of the things that can happen and the backlash that comes from that is, we've given white males an opportunity to grow and learn how to make things really well. We started them at the bottom and let them work their way to the top, or sometimes started at them at the top and they were fantastic to begin with.
Yeah.
But if you suddenly start giving people who don't necessarily have that same level of experience, you don't always get the same quality of content, and you're probably not speaking to a broad enough audience for longevity for whatever the product is.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this fervor for everybody gets their show.
Yeah.
Right. Every single group gets multiple versions of content for themselves is actually going to work out, because we're doing it too suddenly. We're doing it without understanding the market. We're doing it without understanding all that. And I'm really afraid that this is going to come across as me being like, yeah, it's not working. Like, it should work. But I think that we're going about it in a way that's it's like almost like setting ourselves up for disaster, because we're going to make it look worse at the end of the day than the thing that was trying to be accomplished by giving opportunities to people who hadn't had them before.
Right. I mean, and this is a through line you'll see throughout. I mean, you could see this in basically any industry. A massive industry is like a really large ship that doesn't just turn on a dime. It takes a long time to shift. But then it's like this extra gear it has where it can turn on a dime. Like you said, for years, people start to think in the industry, should we include more? Should we do more of this, more of that? And then it's suddenly everybody gets the same idea at the same time because it's had enough time to percolate. Yeah. And now it's just, then there's a massive shift. And there needs to be a time to calibrate, to say, okay, we excluded too many people for too long, and we included one group way too much for too long, and now there's this big calibration going on. I do hope, like you, after a while the dust will settle, and it'll become the free market of ideas, where if there's an audience for something, make something, it'll get found. If there's no market for something, then it doesn't work. And then, try not to blame it on something that isn't the actual cause of it.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying, right? I would like to be the actor that gets to be in content created for everybody. I'd like to represent who I am in the context of who you think I am within your group. That excites me. The idea that we can all be recognizing perception that as a white person, I have been, notably blind to, like, that excites me. That's why we're artists, right? Let's look at the world from a different perspective. And, why comedy is one of the best ways to do it. Someone stands up and is like, have you ever thought about it like this? And people get to laugh, but now they do have to think about it like this, right?
Yeah.
So, I hope that we don't lose all of the power that we've gotten going, but it's good. I don't know. We're in an amazing time of change in entertainment that I sure don't fucking understand.
I
just hope I make it out alive on the other end.
No, I was telling you this before we started. I said I'm 53 now, and I've been in social media for, I don't know, however long it seems to have been a requirement for your work. And I never understood it. I don't know why some people pay attention to some tweets and ignore others. I don't know why some videos go viral and others don't. I'm told there's an algorithm, and there are smarter people than I, younger people than I, that know how to discern what that algorithm wants and play to it. I can't do it. I've tried. I told my wife the big mistake I made in my stand-up career was that I wanted to succeed and become famous so badly that I thought about what the audience wanted, what the industry wanted, and I tried to give them that. Instead of deciding who I was as an artist, coming up with my own voice, expressing it uniquely, and hopefully finding a way to make that accessible to anyone who wanted it. I flipped the script, and I shouldn't have done that.
The trick is to, right, we can't care, right? Authenticity. I believe that what the industry buys is two things: authenticity and vulnerability.
Yeah.
You need to be willing to put your grossest, most painful things to the forefront, because most people, I think that entertainment is there to stretch our comfort zone, right? And this is what I always say is, right, like, I think that there's this range, right? There's network television. If this is the range of human emotions, it's this long line. Network television is this tiny little thing in the middle that makes people go, it's okay to sometimes cry when your lead has a bad day, right? But it's a little stretch of a comfort zone. And then you have like independent film, where it's like, you better be ready to go through a roller coaster of massive, right, things. And so I think that, you know, the people who win Oscars are much more willing to be vulnerable and truly deeply themselves, right? Not that you and I aren't, but they've just made a career out of doing that.
Right.
But they probably couldn't do network television because they look like fools on NCIS XYZ going, like, now I'm going to make you feel like tragedy. Like, no, can you pull that back to like vague sadness, you know?
Yeah.
And again, that's not knocking the actors who are on the show. They know what that show requires of their audience members, and that's where they do their best work. So, you know, I'm trying to, you know, I'm still trying to find my place in the industry and how much vulnerability they want from me, because I'm like willing to lay it all on the table, and sometimes it's too much. You know?
Yeah, so, it is really hard, especially when you're on camera, because I know I think a lot of voice actors have also been on camera actors and still are. And it's all acting. However, the experience of auditioning as an on-camera actor before everybody was just self-taping at home was a different animal altogether. You had so much of your ego already invested by the time you got in the car and fought traffic to get there. You're already thinking, okay, don't psych yourself out of this one. Don't get in a bad mood. That guy just cut you off. Don't get mad at him and bring that into the audition. You're already tense on your way to the audition.
Yep.
And then when you're in the waiting room, a game is being played. A nefarious, sinister, desperate game is being played by people who want to absolutely look like they're not playing a game. You know, I'm working a lot. Did you notice how much I'm working just in this casual conversation I'm having with other actors here? Oh, yeah, and I'm going to read for this thing, too, that you're reading for. But you're not working as much as me. And so, you know, good luck to you. But, you know, and you have to walk through that gauntlet.
Yep.
Into a room full of people that clearly don't like you.
Don't like you.
They'd
rather you weren't there, and that they could cast someone way more famous. That's really, if they could just get that contract signed.
You've already walked in the door and lost it.
They're like, can we get Mira Sorvino? Oh no, she's on the blacklist. Fuck. Okay, we might consider hiring Anna.
Yeah, too bad. Okay, yeah. And so now you go, and now you're thinking, I have to stay in the moment. I have to block all this out. I have to stay in the moment. I have to give a read. And then, she's going to eat her sandwich while I'm giving that read. Okay, fine. Okay. Yeah, and then, all right, she's not even going to have me do it again. Okay, don't try to shake hands. Leave the script. Get out of there. Now go have some ice cream, because you just beat yourself up and you just got assaulted.
You can't, because then you're going to feel fat for your audition later today. So
now,
like, there's no hope.
Do that 500 times. And you might book 3 of them and think, okay.
Yeah.
But
this
camera.
Is why. Don't you? That's on camera right there. And this is why. Like, I started laughing when I saw that. I was like, why are there so many mild sociopaths working in this industry? Why is it that so many of the people who succeed are clearly dickheads, like absolute people who could not give a shit about anything outside of their own experience? But that is why, because what we hire is the appearance of confidence. And so for, you know, those of us who question ourselves and really want to do better and want to make a good impression and think things like, could I have done better? Or, my mood is a little, or the people who really don't. And I have friends who are like this. It's astonishing. They're like, yeah, I'm absolutely the best person for the job. They are not better actors than me. Like, I want to be very clear. They are not better actors than me, but they sell. My shit does not stink. Yeah. In a way that I'm like both jealous of and pleased that as a human being, I don't have to walk through the world. It's like, hey, that worked great for you in that room, and it's going to work great for you for the 2 weeks you're on the job, or the 6 weeks, or whatever. That's it.
But the world has to live with you for the rest of that time.
That's right.
And have you noticed how your relationships are going while you're being this person?
And a lot of those people, because there's the kind of sociopath that's like generally nice, but really just wants what's best for them first. But then there's the kind that's like, I'm smarter than all of you. And those people do not end up working repeatedly. Like I have one person I may have known for a while. And their resume literally does not include the same director twice. Lots and lots and lots
Really?
of jobs. So many jobs. But when I realized, I was like, I'm not sure a friendship with you is an actual possibility. Because I don't think that you recognize my existence in this relationship in any way, shape, or form. You just keep talking about yourself. And when I glanced at their IMDb one day, I was like, oh, that's noted, right? My experience clearly has been professionally noted. So
Right.
this is why my tack has always been, all right, yeah, I'm not the emotionally I don't have emotional armor on. I just don't, right? And so I'm going to be my most vulnerable, ridiculous. I'm going to tell you in the room when I feel like an idiot for something. I'll never forget. I walked into an audition one time and I yelled at the top of my lungs, "Oh my God, your shirt matches the wall." Like the casting director's wearing this crazy turquoise shirt. And, they paint these rooms, these weird colors so we stand out nicely. It's very strange. And so I'm like, and I yelled it and then I was like, "Oh my God, was that the weirdest thing ever to say?" And he looked down at his shirt and he looked over at the wall and he comes back to me with this grin. He's like, "No one pointed that out yet today." I'm like the 100th person. And he's like, "Were they too afraid to say something?" And it was a moment of delight because I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Is that weird?" I let it be as awkward as it was.
Right.
And I did not book that job, but I don't think it was because of that. I think it was, because I wasn't right for the part. I hope.
Well,
my hair color's wrong.
Yeah. I've often said this about philosophy and psychology, and you can say this about most any endeavor in life. The best version of all of this, the best attitude to have, is a riff on the Serenity Prayer. And you don't have to be religious. It's grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the strength to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah. So if you realize that there are things you cannot control, then it is only common sense to spend as little time focusing on them as possible, realizing that you're human and you're only going to occasionally fixate on those things. You can't help it. But a marvelous encapsulation of this in the form of the actor's experience is Bryan Cranston. I think he was backstage at an award show where he probably won something because he's great. And he said, for the longest time, I was an actor going into auditions trying to book a job. That's what we all want to do. We want to book the job. I want to work. I want to eat. I want to have a career. I want to feel good about myself. So I go in there trying to book the job, and I realized, but they're trying to hire somebody to convincingly portray this character, and you're busy thinking about trying to impress them so that they'll hire you. He says, your job is to play this part, all right? Yeah. Use your training to play this part. Don't book a job. Play the part. Act the part. And he says, as soon as I change my thinking along those lines, I haven't stopped working. Yeah.
The first job I ever booked in Los Angeles, I'd been here probably 2 or 3 years, and I got a really good commercial audition, a commercial agent pretty quickly. Yeah. About a year into auditioning, I was like, this is bullshit, right? And I was doing exactly that, right? I was like, I'm gonna be perfect. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna know all the lines, even though for commercial copy it does not matter because it's literally posted on the wall, right? I was like, I'm gonna be perfect. I'm gonna get my hair done. It's gonna be great. And there was one day I got a call back, and I'd had lots of callbacks, but I always went in being like, okay, here's the day. This is the day. I'm gonna book the job. I'm gonna do it. And for some reason, this day, the callback interfered with something I really wanted to do. And it wasn't something major. It was like lunch with a friend or need to pick somebody up at the airport. It was something like on a personal level. Right. And I was deeply annoyed that I had to be there. And of course, they made us wait 45 extra minutes. And of course, by then my face is like melting off because I'm at, the beach at 2701 Ocean Park. And like literally can't even pull myself together to give a shit that I'm there. Right. And the character was the wife judging the husband. I by the time I got in there, they're like, okay, great. So you do the scene and you're just like standing behind the couch and you're just watching him be an idiot. And I was like, sure, that's fantastic. And then like, okay, give me like 6 facial expressions of, oh my God, you're such an idiot. And whatever cycled through was so genuine and so honest because I thought that everybody in the room was a fucking idiot because I was being held there against my will. And that was, of course, the first job I ever booked. Right. And I'll never forget that lesson because it was so clear that it was, I'm going to say this directly in the aftermath of talking about my sociopaths. Right. Yeah. Like suddenly it was about me. Suddenly it was about my experience. And that actually is what made it about my humanity.
Yeah.
right? That is what actually made it about, oh, that's how you represent a person, is to actually feel like one, not feel like a prop. And you know as well as I do, that's what 98% of commercial acting is like you're a prop selling their product, right?
Yeah.
And I guess it was just such an important lesson. It's like, even if you are the prop for the day, like believe your position in the weird, technicolor world you're in. I don't know.
Yeah. This is a very fine line that the actor has to walk because, and it's to a degree true for stand-up comics as well, that you have to believe in your material, you have to believe in your performance, and yet it requires a connection from the audience as well for it to really be successful. And yet there's only so much you can do to make that connection work. There's only so much you can do to book the job. And if you don't book it, you might feel like you failed. But if you did your half, then you have to let it go. Same goes for comedians. There's a story, I can't remember who told it, but it's about Albert Brooks, one of my favorite comedians, actors, you name it.
Humans,
and he did a sketch in the 70s on I think the Mike Douglas show. And this was the daytime talk circuit, and he did the world's worst mime. So he comes out painted as a mime, and he does the things that a mime does, but he talks throughout the entire bit. You see, the wind is too much, and I cannot walk against the wind. And then, and of course, the bit dies. Nobody knows what he's really doing. They don't get that the world's worst mime is also funny, so they don't laugh. And then a friend of his said, "You're doing the Tonight Show next week. You're doing Carson, right?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Are you going to do the mime?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "But it died. Nobody laughed." He goes, "It doesn't matter. It's funny." And that was his answer. He goes, he completely believes that, well, just the audience got it wrong. I think it's funny. He does it on Carson. At first, the audience is not getting it. And then Carson understands what he's doing, starts laughing. The audience sees Johnny. They all start laughing. And it was all because Brooks had the sheer force of will and self-belief that, no, I believe in what I'm doing. I think the audience just simply didn't get it. And I think the right audience will get it. And he stuck to his guns.
But that's the thing that goes away when what you're trying to do is book the job. You don't believe in yourself anymore. You believe that you should book the job or need to book the job, right? And that's no longer about like, no, I'm funny.
It's just like if you're meeting someone in a social setting and you want to approach them and you want to, maybe ask them out for a date or just come off as attractive. If they sense that you really want them to like you, just from an evolutionary standpoint, that's an unattractive quality. Casting directors can smell it before you even walk in the room. It's like, wait, is that OD desperation I smell wafting in here? You're already at a significant disadvantage.
It's so true. It's so true. I think, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I believe that confidence sells, but I think that there's also, look, I also, like, I've worked hard for my confidence. I really did believe that I had to work harder and better than everybody else for such a long time. But I just want to, I guess, reassure anyone who might be worried, like, well, I don't have confidence. You can earn it.
You can earn it.
You can teach yourself. You can build it. You need fucking therapy. You need to pick apart the reasons that someone took away that confidence from you. But you can get it back. You genuinely can find what is beautiful about yourself and just love up on that so hard that you just don't even worry about the rest. And I think age helps a lot.
It does.
And I think, surrounding yourself with good people helps a lot. And I think that finding the things that you are good at, and I'm putting a plural on that on purpose because especially in our industry, you're probably not going to survive with one single, talent, right? I need to play robots and delightful, voices of reason. But I guess there's a world in which you can cultivate the belief in the things that you have to offer.
There's a lot of useful information out there about that too. I mean, and some of the glib little sayings, the cliches, do have some truth to them. Fake it till you make it. Okay, if you're an actor and a halfway decent one, you can fake a certain amount of confidence. You can tamp down on the desperation long enough to maybe last through a 90-second audition. If you're reading for something at home because you're a voice actor, then you can just do it when you damn well feel like doing it and get it in before the deadline. You can capture more of the environment that you need. And then there's the old 10,000 hours idea. There's certainly merit in that. If you do something long enough, you're going to acquire skill and then confidence in your ability.
I was taking a class that included a forced audition, and so I was practicing auditioning on top of auditioning. Right. And I mean, what an amazing thing. Why, we've spent all of these hours on stage and in the booth and, wherever it is, learning this craft. But the hardest thing about getting to do the job is trying to get the job. So why are we not practicing the getting of the job? Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true. And I think once that becomes a part of the skill set and part of the understanding, anyone who's like, I can't wait till the time when I don't have to audition anymore. I'm like, okay, good.
There's
good luck.
There are A-list actors who still
Agreed.
sometimes, there are A-list actors who get offers all the time. But if there's a part they really want, and they find out there are 2 or 3 other A-list actors that really want it, sometimes they find themselves in an audition situation where they may not even have to read copy, but they have to take a meeting, and they have to convince someone across the table from them. It's still an audition. It is still you saying, pick me over those others.
Yes.
And it doesn't end until, like, I knew an actor at our agency who was, he had done on camera, he'd done voice acting, but he had decided to produce something. So I guess he got together with people, he got the resources together, a studio bought it, they actually got to produce it on a lot. And he said, I never realized how much power producers have until I actually became one. And unless you're an actor who signs your own checks, and he mentioned Tom Cruise, he says, Tom Cruise signs his own checks. Yeah. He doesn't appear in a movie unless he gets to produce it.
Yeah.
So he says, until you create the content yourself and are responsible for it and disseminating and all that, you will always be replaceable, and you should never forget that.
1,000%. And that's so I directed my first feature last summer, and then I'm in the process.
Right. You spent a lot of time on that.
Yeah. A lot. It's not done. I mean, these things are massive. You can't make a 90-minute movie. This is an almost 2-hour movie with music videos and with all of these things. Like there's so many different elements attached to it. And when I set out to produce on my first movie, we said as soon as it was done, we never would have done that had we known how much work it was going to be. And that's true. But then you suddenly realize that the problem with being purely an actor is you're constantly begging for jobs. Yeah. You're constantly at the whim of somebody else's need, taste level. You taste at all. I mean, and not even taste level. Like, what if I'm just not your taste? That's okay. That's got to be okay. Mm-hmm. And the only place that I've ever felt like I get to choose which story I tell, which is ostensibly why I got into this entire industry in the first place, is being part of the creative team, is being part of the ground up. Like, how do we get the money? How much money can we spend? Is it logical to spend this much money on it? Let alone, like, what's the story? How do we put it together? How do we shoot it? What camera? La, la, la. And I feel like stepping behind the camera in any way, shape, or form is something every actor should have to do. Mm-hmm. Whether you do some casting, whether you are a PA on set at some point, to be able to see it from the other side and see the ridiculousness of what it takes to make you look pretty for 3 minutes on set is such a valuable lesson. And I feel like we're weirdly shielded from it in that sort of like, keep that like careful, that crazy person who's mildly way too overly emotional needs like extra snacks in their own dressing room so they can calm down, right? And then, when you don't see it on the other side, you don't have a sense of just how many people are putting their hearts into making you look good. Right. And so I feel like it changed the way I approached acting when I started producing, for sure, because if I'm not right for the job, I'm not right for the job, and that's got to be okay. But I'm also the actor who's going to be able to make sure that you get the job done in the time that you have, and my lines will be learned, and I'm not going to be picky about the snacks, and I'm fortunately not gluten-free. I'm just kidding. It's fine to be gluten-free, but like the less difficult you are, the better. I think. I don't know. But then there's plenty of people who worked for forever.
No, absolutely. The biggest mistakes I'm sure that I've made as an actor in my career were either not being prepared enough or not being as easy to work with. Now, I always think that I've been pretty easy to work with because I'm a people pleaser. A lot of actors are. We like making connections. But
and we need attention. Let's just be real clear about that. Yeah. Like, we're missing attention in some area of our lives, and we really need it. And thank you for giving it to us. That's true. Like, I dare you to find someone who's not.
Like, all people love to make connections. They may not all realize it, but we're human. Human beings are social animals. But actors, there's a bit of a more pronounced quality in that regard. I'm sure that I've had a session or two where I've been tired. Maybe the blood sugar's a little low. Maybe you take a little longer to give them the take you want. Maybe they see that your enthusiasm is flagging. And you have to remind yourself, of course, it's okay to be human, and maybe the conditions aren't ideal, but I guarantee you there's an actor out there that will never let that mask slip. Ever. From the time they walk in to the time they leave. Even if underneath the window where they can't see you, they're stabbing themselves with a pencil because they have to get that stress out. But they know that the other side of the glass or the other side of the camera and the crew all around you, they're just as tired as you are, and they want to get out of there. They want to wrap the day, and it all hinges on your performance, what you're about to do in this next take. And this is where, at least in a sense, actors and artists can identify with somebody that has a job that is 8 hours of relentless punishment and drudgery. Sometimes you get to that place mentally where you see, okay, I understand what your life is like every day.
Yeah. Like when we're listing weapons on repeat, like so many weapons, and like weapons in this context and weapons in that context.
Video games,
when I was doing that session, I was like, holy moly. Like,
I think there are more there. Just from what I notice on social media, maybe it's just the following I have, but I see it out there. I think young artists want to get into voice acting primarily because they've seen a bunch of anime and they've played a bunch of video games. Now, they appreciate their animated series too, but anime and video games seem to be two huge drivers, and I'm here to tell you those are two of the most tedious jobs you could possibly book because anime is dubbing. It doesn't mean the anime itself is not high quality. It doesn't mean the character is not rich and interesting, but you're having to technically sync their dialogue from another language and make it work on an emotional level with a different language with words that sometimes don't make sense. And then in video games, grenade here, grenade here, grenade here.
I remember
200 lines of that.
200 lines of it, right? And then it's grenade, and then it's this, and then it's that, and then it's your heirloom, and then
sprinkled
it's that.
amidst that, because I want to give credit to our lovely writers.
Amazing.
There's some wonderful character development. But you also have to make the game work technically.
Yes, of course you do, right? Yeah. And I remember there was the first time I was doing a session where it was all the here's and there's, right? At one point, God bless him, our session director was like, it's not like there is the most important word, right? It's like, just say it. Like, it's just right over there. I was like, oh, okay. Got it. Like, it's really hard not to start to make it seem more important than it actually is. It's just like lying on the ground over there. Like, note it, right?
You can
do that in a robotic weird voice.
Yeah. You can forget the moment because you have done a page of these. Like, by the way, I have to say Apex is the least like that I've ever done as far as video games go, because the copy is usually pretty short.
Yes.
And yet I've done games where it's a 4-hour session and it's many pages of you just look at an entire page and they're all 2 or 3 words or single lines, and there's no emotional arc. It's you've got to point something out.
Yeah.
And if you do that for long enough, you're going to leave your body.
Yes.
And you're going to look down and you're going to be aware that you're mechanically making sounds come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
But you're not there.
Your brain is completely shut off. Like it's like this no longer matters. But it does, because it's your fucking job and you got to get it done, right? But it's true. And you have to stop and shake it all off. It's so true.
And you have to be ready for that kind of a workload, because there is some glory that comes with the job when the game is released. Maybe people praise your performance. Maybe they order a cameo from you because they love that character, or maybe buy a Funko Pop that you signed, and
maybe they make weird ASMR videos. I don't know. Like, there's lots of options for things that could totally happen. You
get noticed. You get what the actor needs more than anything. You get attention paid to the fact that you exist, that your performance has made an impression. It's wonderful, but people would say that about comedians. They would come up to me after a show. Boy, that must be great having your job, just working this much a night. And sometimes we glibly say, oh yeah, I don't have to get up till this time and I just work 1 hour a night and all that. But I would tell them, that's true, but you don't see the 99% of what my day is in order to show up and give you what you just enjoyed.
You didn't watch my 10,000 hours.
Right. And you didn't even watch...
And each set, right?
Yeah, you didn't even see what today was before I got here.
Yeah.
What I either had to use or block out to give you this. It's like, this is a great sandwich. You didn't see what the guy had to do to make it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You
And the
didn't
guy
sit
who
through the making of the
drove
bread.
Yes.
Yeah, the grinding of the mustard, right? The
Yeah.
killing of the turkey.
Luckily, we have enough content now where you could
Yeah.
watch Hell's Kitchen, or I would actually recommend Kitchen Nightmares. If Gordon Ramsay, if you want to see how restaurants go pear-shaped, and
Oh
I've
my
worked in them,
gosh. Yeah.
and it's possible you have too. We're actors
Yes.
after
Oh,
all.
yes. Of course. Yes.
You want to know what the back of the house is like? All right.
Do you ever walk into a restaurant and go, "Ooh, that smell, your bleach rag needs changing"?
Or like if like my wife and I have sort of a Spaniard lifestyle. Let's have lunch at 4 p.m. Okay, let's do that. And sometimes we go out to eat. You walk into a restaurant at 4 o'clock, there's a shift change that's been happening. All right. Sometimes in the middle of your meal, two waiters come over, the one who met you and the one who you didn't recognize, and they say, "This is so and so, they're going to be taking over for me." And what you don't know is that waiter, when you walked in, probably went, "Fuck, I don't want any more tables, I want to go home." All right.
Yes.
I've rolled my silverware. I've done all my side work.
I've
counted
done.
out. Now you guys are chatty, and you're going to sit here for an hour and a half, and I can't leave unless I get this person to take this table. I'm giving up the check. It's like, if you've been a waiter, you understand that.
Meaning, right, you did all of the work, and now I'm handing the other person the tip and all of the glory for the amount of food that I sold to you.
I just want to go home. I just want to go home. I got another job to go to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Or I got an audition.
Which is why I highly recommend anyone. Now, chances are it's going to happen anyway, but anyone who wants to be an artist should spend plenty of time doing any job but being an artist. So you can fill yourself with life and appreciate what other people go through. You know, you can't create if you don't fill yourself up with experience, and you can't connect with other people if you don't know what they're going through. And so whenever I go out to eat, it's 15% if it's the worst service I've ever had, and I actively hate the server.
Yes.
15%.
Yes. And they've been rude to me, and exactly. Yes.
Exactly. It's 25% and up if they're really good, because I know. I understand it. I get it.
Although I do appreciate the restaurants that are actually paying a living wage. Like, I'd rather pay more for my
which ones are those?
Tip. And there's a couple of places. There's a couple of places that are like, tip is included. Like, there's no spot on your check for a tip.
Really?
It is they pay full cost of living. Like, they're not paying the like under, because also keep in mind, right, a lot of servers, for those of you who haven't been us, do not actually even make minimum wage.
No, they make $2.13.
They make $2.13 an hour, and your tips are expected to bump you up to a minimum wage. Now, whether or not that happens is not really the restaurant's concern. You have to work to make that happen. So a restaurant that's paying $17, $19 an hour or whatever our minimum wage, what is it in California right now? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Like that, that's hot. Like, I'm in.
By the way, for those of you watching, yes, $2.13 an hour, I believe, is what waiters currently make. I, in Savannah, Georgia, in 1992, was a waiter. Do you know what I was paid per hour? $2.13. And it is not because of one particular party that has never changed. It is because of the other party that it has never changed. All right. So if you're a waiter, waitress, busting your hump, trying to make a living wage, and you're being paid $2.13 an hour, know that one of those parties is responsible for that and the other one is not. Republicans, not Democrats. So I'll go ahead and
just to be clear, let's just go like, well, it's fine. Yeah, and totally.
And I'm not even a Democrat. But those motherfuckers have to own the fact that they don't want waiters to make a living wage.
Well, we live in a capitalist society, and I get it. Look, we're benefiting from it because we get paid ridiculous amounts of money to speak out loud, right? I'm fine with it. I mean, I think that there's places in which it's very humanly destructive.
Well, John Fugelsang says it best. I love capitalism, but I'm anti-greed.
Yeah, that's the thing. So anybody who's like, no, we can trust each other to do what's best for everybody, has clearly never met the sociopaths we work with every single day. I mean, that there's just that, right? It drives me crazy.
Everyone is not
libertarians and all this stuff. No. And the idea that they should be is why we legislate things like this and why we pay our taxes. And why, if you don't pay for a good public school for my children, I, as a woman, cannot work as many hours
Right.
as, whoever else who doesn't have the children to take care of. So you want a good capitalist society. You want us to be all able to like make and spend as much money as possible,
Right.
pay the taxes
Yeah.
so that I can send my kids to a really good public school so they can then go back into the workforce and make shit tons of money doing the thing that they love the most. Like, I'll pay for your kids to go too. Hopefully they're as smart as mine. That'd be great, for everybody. But the idea that we should therefore like everybody should just be out for themselves. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. It literally cannot work that way.
No.
That's where I draw the line,
Well,
I'm like,
this is why I never made a good libertarian, because I tried it. But
God.
I'm a libertarian who believes everyone should get health care, so it doesn't make me a very good
libertarian.
It doesn't work, yeah. There's no tent for me. But I used to
Yeah.
joke about this on stage. I would say it's easy to see the extreme right. It's easy to see the extreme left. All right. Fascism, communism, shades of socialism that don't work, shades of capitalism that don't work. But I always thought there's no extreme middle, right? It's like, no, let me introduce you to the Libertarian Party. All right.
Yes.
Because I know in some world, there's a world where people think everyone should just be out for themselves. The free market should rule. There should be no restrictions, and everyone should do whatever they feel like doing. And I would say we've seen that world, and it's called Mad Max Fury Road. Okay. So at a certain point, you need to have firewalls in society. And as I don't ever bother going into a libertarian chat room, because that way lies madness. Taxation is not theft. Taxation is a fee you pay to live in a civilized society.
It's the only way it's going to work.
Goods and services get distributed a little bit to people who simply cannot make them, who simply don't have the same resources you do, maybe not even the same mental or emotional resources you do. There are stopgaps to make sure that we don't turn into barbarians because we've been deprived of the necessities of life. It's simply a public good.
It's a public good. Have you ever noticed that, and I'm saying this only in the context of that you seem to have left it, is that everybody I know who's a staunch libertarian is a white male. And what that comes with is the privilege of expecting that the world works for you, right? I have never met a Black female libertarian, right? I've never met a female libertarian for that matter, right? Like the idea that the world is going to be fair, if you just say it's going to be fair, is a kind of privilege that you don't understand unless you like on the outside going, oh, I've never experienced that before.
I would say Ayn Rand would be your female libertarian, kind of
she's
she's
okay,
the one they
fair.
worship. As I used to say, go into a libertarian comment thread and it's a bunch of shut-ins living in their mom's basement who are economics majors in college, climbing over each other to impress the ghost of Ayn Rand. Right. So
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yes, I would say if you were to look at the demographics, and I don't like playing identity politics, but you were probably not wrong. You probably are not wrong that most libertarians are people that, again, I will quote John Fugelsang, a very funny comic who also a very perceptive guy who I do not always agree with, but he's very funny on this topic. Libertarians are like cats. They just think, look at this food that has magically been placed before me that I naturally deserve. It's like, look at this blanket that has been put before me that I naturally am entitled to.
Yes.
You don't seem to realize all the things that happen that were a communal decision.
Yes.
And I don't even want to make libertarians the enemy, because at least they'll vote for gay marriage and legal weed and No,
and I'm not. And I should say, in the interest of not making this about identity politics,
you can go too far.
My experience, right? My experience has always been, I'm like, okay, so if you ever experience that from the other side of things, I wonder if you would feel the same way, because I love it conceptually. I love it. We should all be able to just I see someone in need and I'm going to help them. That's what's definitely going to happen. That's actually me, but it doesn't function because that person doesn't also believe the same thing. And they're never going to.
And because clearly I'm not trying to grow my channel beyond my own sphere here, but if you want an example of why you need taxes because you think that everyone may not be as philanthropic as you, Donald Trump, okay? Yeah. This guy... he has charities and he's been forced to close them because he uses them as an ATM. Okay. Yeah. Because he's not the only one. He's probably not even the worst example. He's just the most prominent example. It is possible for a human being to have an enormous amount of resources and not want to part with a single cent of it. J. Paul Getty put everything in a charitable trust. Why? Because he would never have to pay taxes on it. But it also meant that he could never take any of the money out, and he didn't care. He just went, it's mine.
It's mine.
Do you know how many people you could help with that? I don't care. Let them get
buy
jobs.
some art.
Yeah. It is to put it simply, yes, you can go too far with this, obviously. You can become a communist and say, no, everybody gets the exact same amount. It's like, well, that doesn't work either. You know?
Yeah, that just squelches anybody,
Yeah, we're
being
always
able to rise above.
Yeah, we're always calibrating it. How much taxes are too much? I don't know. We'll let you know when it happens. And then how little taxes are too little? We'll let you know when it happens. It changes all the time.
Well, and I think, the hardest thing about the social experiment that is America is that, we clearly don't agree from state to state, city to city, town to town. And yet we've been put under an umbrella that is never going to function for everybody. So we're working on this like 50.5% majority sort of a mentality. And I do think, to that end, we'd be, in many ways better off if we could be making more of these decisions locally, because they would change more frequently and more easily and more effortlessly. And the idea that we're fighting for something that clearly people don't believe in some areas, that seems obvious and unnatural to me, to prevent people from being able to do. I'm pretending like I'm not being obvious about what I'm saying, but
say the thing you want to say.
I don't know.
Say the thing you want to say.
You know what? Okay. You need an abortion? Get over here. I'll fucking house you till the thing is over, right? I understand there's people, and I do actually understand the moral argument there. I just happen to think you're full of shit if you think that women are going to survive if that's your policy. It's just not going to happen. They're going to die because you're putting a pressure on them that not everybody can actually accomplish and achieve, and it's not fair. Right. And if we're going to talk about just what's making everything fair for as many people as possible, that's where taxes come in. Right. We are here to try to make it possible for everybody to be able to rise above and, feed you if you can't do it for yourself. I don't know. That seems all right with me. But
yeah, I know. And this is, again, later on, when this is what I like to do. We have a long conversation. It goes all over the place. And then I let everybody sleep on it. And they say, hey, that 20 minutes we spent talking about X, Y, Z. Can we, I was like,
should we just cut that?
It's out. Don't worry about it. It's out. I'm not here. I don't do gotcha questions. I'm not here to expose somebody. It's like, we talk about whatever you want to talk about. You want to leave it all in, it stays in. Right?
Well, this is what happens, right? When you're passionate people and you've done a lot of thinking about society and the person across from you and what's, good for the whole, instead of literally what is good in my backyard.
Yeah.
Right. Like what functions in my white picket fence, right? Instead of, all right, is it possible for everyone to get a white picket fence? And do you know what? The answer is that's not physically possible. Do I need to be embarrassed that I'd still like to have one? Also, no. Right. This is how we figure out, how the resources are going to be spread. And that's just how we do it here. I don't know.
It's messy.
So no, it's messy. It's fucking messy. And I'm a princess in her ivory tower, who, was able to go to really good schools and get a great education and still love the person next to me without thinking that I deserve, different opportunities than everybody else.
I think it's, I'm a big believer in critical thinking, and I'm a big believer in Socratic dialogue. And David Mamet put it very well. And David Mamet is somebody that politically I have very little in common with, the way he thinks. But he was on Bill Maher, and he said there is a Hebrew tradition of discourse where you start by defining the other person's position. And if you do it to their satisfaction, they say, yes, that is an accurate depiction of how I think on this issue. They then have to do the same to you. When you both agree, you say, okay, now we both understand where the other's coming from. Now let's put out facts on the table. I will state this as a fact. Can you agree that that is true? If they say yes, then you keep that as a fact for the discussion. You lay out another fact. If they say, I don't agree that that's true, you take it off the table. If you can understand each other's position, lay out agreed upon facts, then you can now have a critical discourse and get somewhere. The problem is too often, especially now in the age of the internet, people are not absorbing the same quote unquote facts. And so we can't even agree on reality. And it's a very difficult proposition to have an adult, mature, productive, Socratic dialogue with somebody who might be on the opposite end of the political spectrum. Not impossible, but it has become harder to do that.
So here, I'm just going to take this all the way back down to zero because I love, obviously, like we're, the way our discourse is able to go, we're clearly people who believe in this, love this, and do this. But when Socrates was debating, there were slaves. So the idea that this idea is going to work for everybody ain't true. You got to be an educated person who's understood and spent $10,000 on the Socratic method because your dad's a lawyer or, you're well educated. Like it's never going to be the way that everything is decided if we're in a true democracy, which, we'll get into that another time, perhaps.
We're under the umbrella of democracy. We're not an autocracy. We're not a theocracy. We're not an oligarchy, although we have features of all of those. Yeah, we're trying to make the best of everything, I suppose. I don't know how well we're doing. Right now it doesn't feel super, super clear how well we're doing. That's the best way to put it, right? Oh, I know, yeah. But yes, to your point, it's true. To have access to these concepts means that you've had a certain amount of education. A lot of people are autodidacts. They don't need school. They do very well. But for the most part, people don't even know that this is a concept. That's
right. That's what I'm saying.
I do believe there is an inherent drive in a person, or at least an inherent compass that tells them that if you look at something from another person's point of view, you can understand them better. I don't think that needs to be, it needs to be encouraged. But I do think that if a person can see what one person experiences and then go through it themselves, there is an inherent connection that is made. Now, some people are not as emotionally perceptive as others. So some people need more coaching and encouragement and teaching to get there. But I do agree with you that what I'm talking about is the gold standard. Yeah. In the same way that, I need a car. Well, I have this Mercury Pacer and I have this Bentley. Well, if everybody had a Bentley, wouldn't it be great? It sure would. But not everybody gets a Bentley, do they? Yeah. So it's true. Yeah. So I would, this is another avenue that I'm passionate about. I don't think we educate people properly. I don't think we teach them the critical way of thinking. We teach them, all right, here's how you're going to get through these standardized tests so you can get into a good school, so you can get a job that will pay you a certain amount of money, so you can achieve a certain amount of social status, so your parents don't feel like failures. Like, well, that's not exactly the kind of life a person might enjoy. I mean, and it's not also a life that contributes to society as much as you think it does, because it creates an unhappy person.
I agree, but you and I both have declared that we would like to contribute to society, and I think we've also declared that we don't believe that everybody actually even thinks that they should want to. So again, you know, you're sort of like the idea that that's your and my gold standard is great, and we should form our own society, and people should come and live there. But it's really hard to argue against like what the Chinese seem to think is the exact right way to do it, is to be like, no, these are the facts, right? And who knows how many of them are getting any sort of a dose of anything outside of what is being prescribed, right? Like, it's terrifying.
I mean,
to me. But
what are we looking at? 1.7 billion people?
Do you know, one of the best ways that I healed in my desire to please everyone, because I am also a people pleaser and, well documented, well therapied out. Yeah. I remember one day I was like, why is it that I need everybody to like me? Why is it that I'm trying to make everybody happy at the expense of my own happiness? P.S. Yeah. And I thought to myself, you know what? There are 1 billion people in China who don't like me. Yeah. Who probably dislike me. Yeah. Who certainly don't know me and who I'm not going to be able to make happy no matter what I do. Mm-hmm. So perhaps I should give up on the idea that making anybody happy except the people who I'm like actually supposed to have in my life and make happy. Right. Like, I think I think it's a healthier way to do it. We have to, one of the things that's amazing about humanity is that there are different ideas and that there are different opinions and that there are different ways of doing it. I just don't want you to get to tell me what mine are. Right. And that's where I get really caught up in the political debate, because I'm like, I understand why you want that. But if you want that, you're taking it away from somebody else. Right. That's what's not fair. You can believe that morally, but legislating it is not okay, because you're making a moral declaration, not a best for humanity declaration.
And it's funny because this places you in an interesting position politically as well, because we have parties now that kind of demand an orthodoxy.
Oh, one or the other.
Yeah, they could be very loud in this demand. And then there are people within those parties that don't adhere to it, and they have to be very, very good at statecraft to navigate it, to say
exactly.
Yeah, okay, I'll give lip service to what you're talking about, but that's fucking insane, and I'm not going to do it. Right?
Yeah. Single issue voterism is so unique to our, well, maybe it's not. I actually don't know. I shouldn't say that. I'm not a political scientist in any way, shape, or form. So I'm, really just speaking from my own personal observation from the outside world, as an actor, which means nothing. Right?
Well, politics is sort of psychology writ large. If you want to know what people are really into, what they'll vote on, you have to get into obviously what their priorities are, what their own, as you would say, their singular experience is.
Yeah.
And if you think about the idea of legislating, there are certain things you can legislate across the board, no matter where you live. Murder, okay, that's not good.
We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that.
Unless it's self-defense, we're going to say that's wrong, okay? Yeah. But then you could say some societies actually make adultery a crime, whereas it's not a crime here. It's not a crime to commit adultery.
No, it still is in some states.
In some states, it is a crime to commit adultery.
There are still laws on the books.
Okay,
it's terrifying.
Well, let's say laws on the books doesn't necessarily mean ones that they enforce. Like, for example,
that's true. But the idea that we've somehow risen above that,
books. Yes,
yeah.
Well, my wife being a woman of color, we were married, and I realized that when we got married in my home state of Georgia in 1970, after I was born, there was a law in the books saying that we couldn't have gotten married.
Yes.
Now, it was not enforced at that point, but it was on the books. So, yes, there are, it is true. There are certain things that that do not necessarily need to be legislated nationally. Each state, because we're a heterogeneous society and topographically very heterogeneous as well. And one thing I did notice when I studied, religion and global perspectives in high school, taught to me by Benedictine monks, by the way, I realized that, wait a minute, if I look at these major religions around the world, they seem to have proliferated in certain areas centuries ago that were, not always in contact with these other areas. Oh, does that mean that if you're separated from other folks, you might come up with different ideas expressed differently, but maybe it's the same general idea? If you travel far enough, you will realize people are inherently the same, but they have vastly different ways of expressing
accomplishing the same thing. Right. Look, that's the whole myth. That's everything that myths and storytelling is. We're all trying to make sense and put structure to a world that is basically a fucking disaster zone of lack of logic and chaos.
Yes.
And we can't live like that because this magical little brain tool that we've developed to be bigger than any other animal is like, oh, no. Time is linear. Don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing against time being linear in our experience. But the idea that it's like there has to be a structure. I did a lot of research on cults because we live in LA, and
hey, tis the season.
And that's been really informative to me in my understanding of, so one of the things that they say about people who are sucked into cults, because it's not dumb people, right? No. These are intelligent people.
No.
But they're people who need a system in place. And that's what religion is, right?
Yeah.
Here's your system. Just follow this system and you'll be fine. You'll go to heaven. You don't have to be afraid of dying, right? Like, here's why you were born.
Yeah.
I've answered all your questions. It does not matter if they don't actually make any sense. It doesn't matter. Like, you can call them metaphor if that feels better, but you can call them fact if that feels better. We're okay with all of it. Just give us the power to organize your life for you and you're going to be fine. Right. But the problem with that is, of course, as soon as you hand somebody else the power of your own unique thought, then you're letting them make all of the decisions about yourself. Then you get into Nexium and certain other more modern religions that really don't actually make any sense if you actually read some of their liturgy. But it's amazing to watch people you care about get sucked into ideas because they're too afraid to not have something to belong to.
Right.
And so, it's a strange thing. And I feel like, to be able to say, okay, the older I get, the more I'm sort of like, okay, I know where my people are. I know I'm not alone.
You know where your tribe is.
Yeah, I know where my tribe is, and that's it, right? That's a tribe. We all agree
Yeah.
on the same sort of basic principles and the same sort of tenets. That is its own form of religion. It's
Yeah.
just that we didn't organize it around, a deity specifically. And I love the idea of a higher power. I think it's absolutely magical
Hmm.
to not feel like we have actual control over everything. It's the only way everything actually makes sense.
Hmm.
But I'm not going to let you tell me what that guy's
Right.
telling me is right and wrong. And that's, I think, the thing where,
Well, yeah.
but we don't all live in that world.
Dogmatic thinking, yeah, dogmatic thinking is kind of the enemy of critical thinking, of rational thought, of reason.
Yeah.
And people will say, well, you worship science, isn't that dogmatic? It's like, actually, no, because science is willing to change whenever the evidence presents itself. And, the only dogma in science is you really should try to follow a method that allows for observation, a hypothesis, a test of that hypothesis, studying the results. Now, it's not sexy. It's not magical, although science has produced magical things and can introduce you to magical states of mind when you contemplate
Yes.
the universe. But
Yes. Yes.
Christopher Hitchens used to say, a quite controversial man in his own time, but I loved reading him. He would say that the first class measure of intellect is whether or not a person can hold two conflicting ideas in their mind at the same time and operate and function.
Yeah.
And religion allows you to not have to operate with any real dissonance if you're not thinking critically. Like, a religion will tell you this is how the world got here, this is how it all makes sense, even though science will tell you there's no way that's true.
Yeah.
But if you choose to say, yeah, you know what, I'm going to go with that because it's very comforting to believe that. And these are wonderful people. Everybody's so nice. I meet with them once a week, and we do wonderful things for the community. It's a net positive. Yes, but in your mind, you have made a bargain because the idea of sitting in that uncertainty of not knowing what happens when you die was too uncomfortable.
Too
So
uncomfortable.
it's and that's why I have empathy for people that become very religious. I understand. We're artists. We love the power of story. And religion usually has an amazing story behind it, a really powerful narrative. And it can draw you in, but I have to live with my rational thoughts as well. So.
Well, I think, I love, like, I've done a lot of reading up on all of the different heroes' journeys, like, and the anthropology
So Joseph Campbell and all that.
Yeah, right. And the idea that, that is the story that every society has always told themselves, right? Here's a person, they didn't know how to get what they want. They had to leave everything comfortable, go experience this, go fight against that, go this, and then someone back home was waiting for them to come back and, give them all the answers to everything, right?
Yeah.
So if you can look at religion as metaphor, you can hold both of those ideas in your head at the same time.
Yeah.
If you can look at, the people who use, and this is not me advocating it, but this is me understanding it, who use psychotropic substances to go on journeys so that they can receive metaphors to then process, instead of just the people who are doing it because it's fun, which it also is. So I'm not arguing against it. But like, there's ways of learning, because we don't understand everything that's in here, and because we don't understand everything that the universe has to offer us, I believe that there's ways of fucking with the timeline, and there's ways of understanding that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction is the same as if I put a positive thing out there in the universe, then good things, that's karma, right? It's the same, it's the same thing, right? Like, so I think that we're just kind of coming to similar conclusions from different places. And I refuse not to use science. I just think that's insane. But
we're using it right now, so why not use it?
Exactly. Let's technology it up, right? But it's true. I think that, look, I like organization as much as anybody, but I really like to do it from my perspective instead of from somebody else's, and I think that's where.
Well, I've always thought of it. It dawned on me when I was about 17, and again, I was in global perspectives class. The irony being, it was taught by a religious order, and they were teaching us critical thinking. They said, here's Buddhism, here's Islam, here's Judaism, Taoism, Shintoism, Christianity, all of these. And I kept noticing one basic through line, which is the golden rule: treat others the way you would like to be treated.
Right.
And I thought, this is interesting. They all kind of hint at the same truth. So maybe they're actually talking about a human experience more than a divine one. They just don't want to relay that
Yes.
And so I started thinking of religion as kind of like an event that happens in the middle of an intersection. And then if you go to each corner of that intersection and ask somebody what they saw, they're all going to describe the exact same event, but they're going to do it from a different angle.
Yeah.
And you're going to think, well, he didn't hit him from his left, he hit him from his right. And it's like, no, it actually happened from the left, from the right. But they're all talking about the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so I've learned to simply, maybe it's a more humanistic approach. I've learned to see the human touch in all of this search for the divine. What we're looking for, Joseph Campbell used to say, that religion is really good at giving you an experience of life, of feeling alive. Yeah. And I remember as I was listening to this, the interviewer, I think it was Bill Moyers that interviewed them. He asked him, okay, so what's the meaning of life? And after all of this talk about all the journeys and all the concepts, he said, follow your bliss. Yeah. Says that was the best he could come up with, is that you're here, one day you won't be here. It doesn't mean just do whatever you feel like at any given moment, because there are consequences, but it does mean that there is a stirring deep within you. Something put it there. Maybe it's just evolution. Maybe it's something you can't define, but you feel a lot better. And I've made this into a bit more of a mechanical exercise, but when you're using your body and your mind constructively, you feel fulfilled.
Yeah.
I think the universe imbued us with that. And so that's something wiser than ourselves talking to us. Yeah. Why not listen to it?
Yeah.
Now, find a way to function in society while you do that. When you're not booking that job, you can't just follow your bliss. You got to go make rent.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, maybe your bliss isn't a Bentley, right? I mean,
maybe your bliss is just a roof over your head.
Maybe it's the beach. Family. I don't know, right? Yeah, family. That one person, a dog, a cat. I don't understand that, but that's just me, right? Like, but I think that's we've overcomplicated our needs, right? And if you could bring bliss back down to or sort of Maslow's like hierarchy, then I feel like you'd be in a better place of like how many of these needs have I achieved, right? How much of this have I been able to accomplish for myself? Because I don't think you can actually follow your bliss if you don't have a roof over your head, right? Like or enough food.
Certain things will get in the way of that. I did cognitive behavioral therapy, and I've talked about this on my stream, and I've talked about this in interviews. What I got was basically a skill set taught to me by a doc who he's passed away, may he rest in peace. But he said the treatment is always the same. Unless somebody is homicidal or suicidal, I can work with somebody who's able to receive information, and I can treat them by teaching them a skill set where they learn to address their needs. He says, we all have the same 8 basic needs. And I said, oh, like Maslow's hierarchy? And he says, it's very similar. It's not exactly like that, but it's similar. He says, all of your needs, you have to be constantly aware of them, and you have to be ready to meet them in ways that you're in control of. So you don't leave it up to other things.
Yes.
When you build that skill set, realize that you'll have a game plan for meeting your needs and being happy, feeling positive emotions every day, while also realizing that sometimes life is just going to be messy. Things are going to happen that you can't control. You're going to have a tough day. You're not going to be happy all the time. That's not how life works. It's an up and down. But if that's your approach, then you'll be able to function at a high level, and you'll know when something's off, how to address it. And then you might think that I think I need these things, but these are wants. My actual needs I'm actually very aware of. They're all inherent. They're not physical. He says, buying a car to make yourself happy. He says, that might make you happy, but it's not really addressing a need. It's a need for transportation to get to a job, but
the bus does that too.
You could walk, you could ride a bike. There are a lot of there are efficient ways to do it.
The Mercury, whatchamacallit, that also does it.
The AMC Pacer will get you there, right? But the point being that if you learn how to recognize the things that are inherent in you and not external, he used to say there are 3 ways to meet a need. 2 of them are ineffective, or they're not very effective. One is through a substance, either a drug or an ice cream cone or whatever, or a second is through an external thing. Oh, this person needs to tell me I'm great, or I need it to not rain today. So those are things beyond your control. The only way to effectively and efficiently do it is to do it through things that are in your control, which he says is harder, but it's the best way to go about it.
Yeah.
That's why it takes therapy to learn it properly if you didn't learn it growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 1,000%. And again, like, let's just double down on how useful therapy is, because, the idea that you can relearn a system that didn't function for you to begin with is such a powerful tool. And I just think it's, again, that's a privileged position to be coming from. I totally
Not everybody gets
understand
access to therapy.
You don't always get access to therapy, but my God, is it amazing how to watch, the ability to change a mind that seems already formed. Like, it's magical thinking. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Years of work. Yeah.
Well, I did it at 34 is when I started it.
Me too.
34.
Yeah. Not cognitive, but classic talk therapy.
It's what works. Yeah. Now, in my case, I had the advantage. I've had many advantages. I used to joke I still joke with my wife when I buy a lottery ticket. I say, I'm trying to win my second lottery. Yeah. All right. I know I've already won one by virtue of a lot of things that are totally beyond my control. Yeah. And not just color of my skin, demographic, and all that. Some of it is
where you were born. Yeah,
exactly. So, Sam Harris talked about this with a scientist who said even meritocracy is not as equal as you think, because not all people are born with the same skill set. Yeah. Some people are born smarter than others, and they're going to benefit more from a meritocracy than a person who's not that bright. But that person who's not that bright deserves to have a roof over their head. Yes, health care, all that. Yes. But I have an uncle, may he rest in peace. I'm losing special people in my life. That's life.
Yeah, that's how old we are.
Yep. My uncle was a psychologist. So he saw me having, I would call him, I was having panic attacks, anxiety. And he says, okay, you need to go find a cognitive behavioral therapist, and you need to tell him you're suffering from anxiety, him, her, whoever, right? And work on that. And so usually you go to a CBT for a few months to address one specific issue. But in my case, we looked under the hood and he said, there's a whole thing you need to sort of relearn. Yeah. So it was a couple of years, 2.5 years of weekly visits, and then about 1.5 years of checking in once a month. Mm-hmm. But when I started relearning how to rethink, how to form new associations, my uncle told me it's going to take you about 3 to 5 years, right? For this to really sink in. And I was so discouraged when I heard that. And then I told my therapist, and he said, no, I agree with your uncle. You have to rewire. You have a 16-lane highway of associations you've dug for 30 years. Yes. And you're digging a dirt road right now and trying to reroute all that traffic. No, you need time. Yeah. It takes time. It's work.
Any of the different ways of looking psychologically at yourself, right? Like, we're programmed. I love systems therapy, right? Like, the idea that we're programmed and you only have the information that came into you in the first place. Right. And so if that's the information set you're working from, you've got to introduce a whole new set and then also reinterpret it. Right. And that's very similar to what you're talking about. Yeah. And if you don't ever do that, you're just going to continue the exact same broken system that you've been living in the entire time. And so I feel like that's relieving, again, right? If you're a person who can learn new things, and if you're a person who has the resources to and the time to be, because the system that we develop functioned in the original system, in the way that it did. But the idea of tearing it apart means you're going to mess something up. You just are. And then you have to still be willing to do it, because it's still better to put it back together in a more functional way.
And you're going to be uncomfortable, and you're going to fight it. Because I used to tell my therapist, I would say, I feel like if I'm not worrying about something, then something is wrong. And he says, because it's your buddy. All right. Yeah. You need to get a new buddy. You need to leave this one behind. Yeah. It feels unnatural right now because it's your go-to. You learned it. Yeah. I'm of the opinion that you can have a set of inclinations that is factory installed, and then you mix environment in with that, and they can either be mitigated or actually enhanced or exaggerated. So it's a stew. But he said, you learned this, you've got to unlearn it, you've got to replace it. And for me, the moment when it did finally at least start to click was when I was driving. And I had one of my random thoughts of something I decided I was going to worry about, because it was a habit. I thought, I need to worry about this. Or I catastrophized. I thought, what if this happens? This would give me the opportunity to stay anxious, which was my habit. Yeah. But some of my training at that point kicked in, and I said, oh, well, if that does happen, then I'll practice this kind of need fulfillment I've been learning, and then I'll be okay. And I started to feel better. So I staved off a worry through a new habit I'd learned. And at that point, if there was an audible click, I wouldn't have been surprised. But I just went, Oh, that's what he means. I don't have to keep thinking that way, and I can improve my life through better thought processes, which lead to productive actions.
Yeah.
And that was when I was 35.
Yeah.
I'm 53, and sometimes I still worry because I'm a human being. But my life is 180 from where I was.
Yes.
As you would say, you have to relearn a new system.
Yes. And I keep saying, like, I was so busy and with the process of beating myself up for all of the things I wasn't doing well enough.
Right.
That if I hadn't gotten into the habit of learning to reward myself for the incredible positive behavior that I was actually also exhibiting at the same time, that it could sure always be getting better at things.
Yeah.
I would never have directed my own movie. I would never have been able to stay an actor. I would never have been able to be the best mother to my children.
Right.
Because, the more you're living in a world where you can't deal with the actual thing that's in front of you instead of with the system coloring everything that's actually in front of you.
Right.
You're just never going to get the best out of it, I guess. Is the
Right.
best way to, right?
Now,
So.
Is therapy something you continue to do, or is it more of a check-in thing, not as often?
No, I still do. Well, I've gone on and off of it a little bit, but I still find that there's things that are in place, and there's always sort of like a change of foot and stuff like that I find it useful to be able to have someone to check, in with. And because I have, a tendency to worry and get anxious.
Yeah.
For me, there's a need to have a safe place to be able to put those anxieties aside and then be able to deal with them.
Right.
But before it was same as you, right? Like a constant stream of, anxiety and running scenarios just in case and all of these things. And I can stop doing that and do the work now.
Right.
I mean, when, I'm not dealing with small children all the time in these things, right? You know how that goes.
Oh yeah. My daughter's going to turn 9 on Friday, and my son just turned 11.
So good. Yeah.
Well,
I'm still in the middle of it. Mine are 4 about to turn 5,
Okay.
and then 7 about to turn 8. So
Gotcha. Yeah. I get the feeling you're around the age we were when we had kids. So I was 42 and 44 when my kids were born.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of people can spend time saying, "Oh, if I had only done this sooner." I can honestly say that if I had met my wife a year or two earlier than I did, I would not have deserved her. I was still maturing. I was still learning. And I was finally becoming the kind of person that wouldn't have sabotaged a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And even the mistakes I've made as a parent, and almost every mistake I've made as a parent, is not because I didn't know something. It was because I wasn't patient.
Yes.
And because I was too wrapped up in my own insecurity or habit of wanting something to be a certain way.
Yes.
I mean, and kids will give you every opportunity to express impatience.
Yes.
Because they're these poor little creatures that can only be kids. That's all they know how to do. How do they learn to be more than that? You're the parent. You guide them.
Yeah.
So what kind of role model would I have been if I did it the age everybody else did it at? I shudder to think.
I agree. No, that's why I'm saying, when I was 34 when I had my first, and that was perfect. I knew enough about myself at that point, and I knew enough about, the potential mistakes that I had made in previous relationships.
Yeah.
When I first started therapy, I was like, no, I can control anybody's happiness level, which wasn't untrue. I'm very good at because I read people really well. That's what an actor does, right? Like I am able to understand emotionally where you're at. And of course, right, that's what all of Scientology does, is push you up or down that thing. That's a skilled practice, right? Mm-hmm. It's fucked up, but it's really, it's possible. And if I hadn't understood that when I had kids, I was dealing with the person in front of me, the person that they were, instead of my own bullshit. And I lose my mind all the time. Like who doesn't yell at their kids? It would be nonsense to say that I don't ever not do it well, right? But if I do, if I am like, I'll stop and I'll say, I'm sorry, that wasn't about you.
Right.
It is not their job to make me happy. It is their job to meet their own needs. And that's what we're training them to do.
Yeah.
Right. Like at the end of the day, when they're 18, they got to fucking go live in the world. I don't want them in my basement. Thank you very much. I love you lots. But, like the idea is to create people who are self-sufficient and self-reliant. And, that's something it took me a long time to figure out. So like,
Well,
that's the job.
I used to mention that to my therapist too, because I would talk to him and say, look, I understand the idea of having to meet a need in ways that you're in control of, but I'm a comic. At the time,
Yeah.
I was doing stand up and voice acting, and he says,
Yeah.
I don't want you to stop doing stand up. I think it's important. You get a lot out of it, but he says you have to realize that yes, I understand if the audience doesn't laugh, you're not doing your job well, or maybe you're not seen as successful at your job. But you just have to realize that there's a limited effect you have on other people. So yes, you're a fun maker. You love to make people happy. You can show people a good time. But at best, you're going to have influence over how they feel, but you can only control it so much. There's a limit. Yeah. They've got their own thing going on. So obviously, do your best at your job and the laughs will come. Yeah. Do your best at being an actor. You'll make enough of a connection. People will see what you're doing. But yes, you have to realize that there is a limit, and especially with children, you're faced with that limit all the time. These are little people that don't regulate their own emotions very well. They're still learning how to do it. Their brains haven't even finished developing.
That's right.
They couldn't regulate their emotions every time if they tried. We don't even do it well. So.
I am so pleased when this happened just yesterday, right? We had a long day at summer camp and they were in the pool for the first time and they were so tired when they came home, which is the point of summer camp. So good job, summer camp, not knocking it. Yeah. She lost her mind about something. She's crying hysterically. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, you do still need to put the books away. I just need you to acknowledge that the reason you're hysterical right now is not because I'm asking you to put the books away, but because you're overtired. And she's like, I'm so tired. And it was such a parenting win, right? Yeah. Like, I have taught you to actually identify the problem at hand and that you have to push through it to still not leave books all over your grandparents' floor because that's rude, right? Like, but the problem is, my God, I'm tired. Yeah. I have identified what's going on in my stupid little body that barely functions, not like yelling at mom for being mean, for making me do something that I just actually need to do, right?
Yeah.
Be tired. Sob about being tired. Don't stop crying. Just recognize the reason, right?
Right. Well, this is why I wish some of my tax dollars, some of our tax dollars do go towards therapy for people who can't afford it. There are therapists who will operate on a sliding scale. They are paid by the city. It's just the resources don't always exist for people to find them. But for me, therapy is just simply the idea of learning how to function in a way that allows you to, have a more active role in how you feel, in how you deal with challenges, and not be at the whim of fate. My uncle used to teach his patients to be proactive, not reactive. Yeah. Take control of how you're feeling, recognize that, you're not perfect, but you can't just wait for something to come along and make you feel better. And when you can teach a child that, or you can teach anybody that, you teach them, yes, you're having an emotion right now, and it'd be really tempting to just go with it and to make a decision based on that emotion. Yeah. But there's going to be a mess afterwards. Even if you're inordinately happy and you decide to make a major decision
to
based
buy the
on
Bentley,
that,
right?
Yeah. It's like, we're taking that trip to Europe. It's like,
that's right. Yeah.
The mortgage hasn't been paid. It's like, I don't care. I'm full of confidence. It's like, okay, but there might be a mess later.
Right.
But teaching people how to regulate how they're feeling and consider other people at the same time, and then make maybe a little bit more of a level-headed decision. Learn how to control what's going on there and understand it. Understanding it, like you say, when you understand why you're feeling the certain way you do, especially if it's a negative thing, takes away a lot of the sting of it.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. Allows you to exist in that moment.
I think for many, many, many generations, we were taught to simply not have the feelings because the feelings themselves were too dangerous. That ain't ever going to happen. That's what being a human is. We are going to have a feeling. We are going to have to enjoy the crap out of it. That's just what's going to be. So for me, it's really like, it took me years of therapy to simply be able to go, okay, right now, this second, we had a thing where every time I got in the car, and this is LA, right? So it's like 18 times a day. When I put my hands on the steering wheel, I'd be like, current feeling. And that was news to me, right? Like the thing, I'm a little bit anxious. I'm feeling really good about that thing that just happened.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm feeling really hungry right now, right? Whatever that thing was, like those are not things that we acknowledge as part of, as you said, the decision-making factors all the time. And I think it's also so important to note that everybody's system is organizing that in a different way, right? For me, it was, if that person isn't happy, I'm never going to be happy. So let me make sure you're happy. And then who's going to make me happy? Where's my happiness maker person, right? Which is nonsense. If I don't take care of my own needs first, by the way, I do mean first, then I don't actually have the capacity.
Put the oxygen mask on yourself before you put it on the person next to you.
Exactly. But for a long time, I thought it was my job to take care of everybody else. I really genuinely did. And that's so,
of course,
but I fixed it, right?
I know that I have absolutely no data to back this up, but culturally I suspect that women grow up with this feeling more than men, because there's a certain expectation to be, now it's changing. We don't have the same traditional roles that we used to, but very often it was the woman that just was the homemaker, was the nurturer, the caregiver. Also, some of it I think might be innate. Women tend to choose caregiving professions more than men. Doesn't mean that, men don't want to do it, but very often there might just be an innate drive that is sex specific. I have no data to say that for sure.
I am not the person who's ever going to argue that there are not inherent differences between men and women. I think that it's really dangerous to try to categorize them in absolute terms, because as we know, nothing is fucking absolute in all of humanity.
Exactly. That realized madness.
But I'm not going to argue that it's not at least historically programmed. That we fucking stay home with the kids and make sure everything is cleaned up. So when daddy gets home from his long day at the office, dinner's on the table and our poodle skirts are like fluffed out appropriately, right? And then we put out. So, like the idea that we're deconstructing all of that is absolutely true. And whether that's actually inherent to our nature or simply to our caveman needs as the weaker physically. And I know I'm going to get in fucking trouble for this. But
that's statistically measurable, though. I don't argue something that is statistically measurable, that women physically across the population are not as strong as men.
That's just
empirically observable.
There's a reason, we play in different sports leagues, and we'll get into that with all of the confusion, over our, anyway.
We'll be editing this out later.
There's a whole bunch of stuff. I can feel it, right? But here's my point, right? We are, in fact, trying to restructure an existing society to better make space for women to be a part of the workforce in a way that they have not previously gotten to expect to be. Let's start there. The problem is, even the workforce itself is still organized to benefit the more inherently male tendencies.
It's under an old system.
Yeah, you're right. It is. And one of the things that I think we're railing against in our extremism politically and socially at the moment is that everybody, men and women, are super confused because we haven't come to any kind of an equilibrium about, look, you're telling me that I can't ever be emotional in a business meeting, but I do feel emotional in this business meeting. Like, why aren't we, we have to come up with a new system. We're going to have to, equalize this thing in a different way. And for a hot second, everyone's going to feel uncomfortable because everyone will have to change.
Right.
And I genuinely think that's what we're railing against when we're like, go back to making America the way it was again 2 generations ago. It's because someone's like, I don't understand the new system. I don't understand the new way that's in place. And that doesn't mean it's not going to change. And that doesn't mean it's not better if it in fact changes, and more fair and more right and more equal and better opportunities for all of the people of different colors and genders from you. But if we don't go through that discomfort as a society, like nothing will ever be okay. It just won't.
And there's the and this is my opinion only, but there's the unfortunate element in that equation, which, by the way, I agree. These are difficult conversations to have. They make people highly uncomfortable. You have to sit in a lot of uncertainty because we haven't figured it out. To some people, the answers are just obvious. Well, maybe they are to some people, but everyone has to admit that there is a large swath of the population, I'm sure myself and you included, that don't have it all figured out, and we need to parse through it. Now, the feeling of uncertainty, I am practiced at having, and I try not to run from it. I realize this is just part of the process. Clearly
you are, yeah.
But I think a large number of people, especially because of our phones, don't like feeling uncomfortable and don't have much practice at feeling uncomfortable because they can select an experience or a piece of news or a piece of media or an app that will instantly give them gratification. So what are we not getting? Practice at being uncomfortable or bored. I tell our kids, got to turn the tablets off. We let them have iPads. Turn them off. Well, what are we going to do? Whatever. But you're not going to turn a screen on. You're going to be bored maybe, which will force you to come up with something fun to do. Be quiet for a little bit. Listen to music if you want. Music's great, okay? But otherwise, go create something. In other words, get used to feeling uncomfortable, uncertain, and create a solution for yourself and see how that works. I don't care what your solution is. I want you to get into the process of meeting uncertainty, something that is not entertaining, that is dull, tedious, whatever. Learn how to exist in that and come up with a solution that doesn't involve bombarding yourself with dopamine.
Yeah.
But is society doing that? If they're not, these ugly, uncertain conversations are going to be very difficult to even get people to engage in, much less make it through.
Well, and I think there's also the problem of there's lots of different ways of engaging, right? Some people use promote, I'm going to say, anger. At the very change itself. As a way of communicating, right? So all of our Socratic method, like desires for higher learning and, super, like, it's never going to happen because if you're yelling at me, we're not going to have the conversation you and I want to have.
They come and kick those little tower of blocks we've made. They just kick right through that.
But that's the problem, right? So sometimes I do get frustrated that we're having two different kinds of discussions, right? Here's a measured, peaceful, bipartisan response, and here's me yelling about something that pisses me off. Like, how are those two things ever going to exist in the same room? And the answer is they can't. So, I'm a little bit more into yelling than the average, generally liberal leaning, like, human being, because I'm like, if I don't yell at you about the thing that you're doing wrong, you may very well not listen to me. It seems feasible.
Yeah, you're a very rational person.
I am. No, I totally am. But I'm also a very emotional person. I'm also,
I'm the same way. It has been an act of will to not yell at my kids for 3 years now. I've raised my voice some, but I used to yell more because I just was practiced at it. And it's just, it's not a good choice, but you're right. And well, there ends the whole point. You and I are rational, at least we think we are, and emotional people. You can be both. But we have practiced unlocking one and putting the other one away and having them exist with each other. Because we've had the opportunity to put a lot of work into it. And it's it's modifying. Not everybody has. And I think for me, it's, the realization that I thought being logical would fix my emotions. When it didn't, it just sent them into spirals of, badness. Whereas instead now I'm like, okay, the emotion has to come first and then I can figure out where it came from. So I am very careful now to be like, ooh, I'm having a big feeling. Like, maybe you feel the same way. I don't often, when the big thing starts to build up, sometimes it takes me a day to figure out what it is, right? Sometimes it takes me, to be like, oh, that event right there triggered an emotional response that is very reminiscent of this. But how many years of picking that apart could you even just notice the word trigger in there at all, When somebody is emotional, you're not going to talk any sense into them, myself included, right? You must allow a person to process that emotion. Then they can get calm, and then they're ready to maybe be a little logical or rational. So, because we acknowledge that most people haven't had the fortune of being able to get therapy and work on themselves and start identifying how they feel and come up with effective processes to live their lives, there have to be the quote unquote people in the room that know how to make maybe an entire audience process their emotions and now calm them down. And when you get people that love to just push the emotion button and keep pushing it and drive decisions based on that, you realize those are dangerous people.
Right, exactly. But look, I'll put that in like lots of different categories because I'm very confused. I know a lot of people who are deeply interested in the self-help movement, right? And the idea that I wrote a book and I figured it all out. So if you do it exactly this way, then and only then you will be fine.
That's dogma. And
Oh my God, it's terrifying to me. Like, as a person who's like, well, that would never work for me. And I know that because I do know what works for me. And it's
right,
certainly not that. I watch people who haven't had the benefit of the self exploration that I've had
right.
by book after book after book after book that each says a slightly different thing and changes over the years and changes over time and declares a different, absolutist statement,
Yeah.
which makes like my brain can't even follow it.
If you're emotionally
Mm-hmm.
invested in something, it can be really hard to move you off of it, even with all the formulas and equations and data in the world. You've got to
No,
detach from it again.
you can't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like there's actually, I think you'd find this an enjoyable book if you're into health and nutrition at all, because it actually takes on that idea. It's called Diet Cults.
Okay.
And
Oh, that's new, right? Yeah.
it's relatively new. I read it a
Mm-hmm.
few years ago, but I kept it because the idea was everyone had come out with a diet book and says, nope, I've figured it out. I've cracked the code. Everyone has to eat exactly like this.
Yeah.
But he says those people don't realize that physiologies change. They change
Yes.
across cultures because the geography is different. They've evolved
Yeah.
differently. So some cultures do very well on this kind of diet. Others don't because their body physiology is simply different, and that's
Different.
empirically measurable. But
Yeah.
he says, I have discovered that across all diets, anyone who eats more vegetables, like the kind of fibrous vegetables,
Yeah.
everybody does better when they eat more vegetables and a little bit more fruit. And everybody does better when they cut down on a lot of sugar, if
Yeah.
they don't drink in excess.
Process it. Yeah.
Certain
Yeah.
absolutes can be measured and proven. But he says
Yeah.
that's kind of where it ends. You
Yeah.
can't say never eat meat.
No carbs, right?
Or
Exactly.
only
Yeah.
meat, no carb. You can't say
Yeah.
that because it's
Yeah.
not going to be uniformly provable.
Yes.
And I think that is the same. The only thing I can say works for everybody psychologically and philosophically is if you focus on what is in your control, you're going to do a lot better
Yeah.
than letting yourself get derailed by things that you have no control over. That's about
Yeah.
the only thing I know for sure is true
Yeah.
for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
true consistently. Even though a person who says, no, I'm only going to wait for lucky things to happen to me, they might actually be right for a day or two.
Yeah.
And in that
Yeah.
day or two, there's no talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as a piano falls on their head,
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
the window it goes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
that's why I'm always wary of, when Trump came down the escalator in 2015 and gave the speech he gave, I said, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Luckily, he's too insane for enough people to like him. So I was wrong. But
Boy, were we.
when he used the phrase, only I can solve these problems for you, when he accepted the nomination, I thought, oh, come on, people. Isn't it obvious now?
Yeah.
Hasn't he sort of made it clear what this is? It's like,
Yeah.
apparently not.
Well, yes. And apparently we wanted that.
Exactly. It's like, I think at this point, he's not fooling anyone. They know what he is.
They know
want
what
it.
he is.
Yeah.
And it's a system and a structure that they think they can relax into
Yeah.
because it'll put things back in a way that makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah. it's well, you know what? Part of the appeal of it is knowing that people like myself see it and go, that's so wrong. And they see that
Yeah.
I'm upset by it. And they've decided that, oh, you personally I've gotten to know, and I know what you're about. And it's just so different from what I am that I've decided that my philosophy is all about pissing you off. And guess who does that really well? That guy up there on that stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Very
yeah.
effective tool.
And that gives me my power back.
Of course. It's like, you know what?
Right,
That's all
yeah.
I need from the guy. Well,
Yeah.
your life is going to be shit. I don't
Yeah.
care.
I need to take the power away from you people who want to give more power to a whole bunch of people who are not like me.
Yeah.
Means then that I'm going to give it back to that guy, and he'll be the one who fucks all of you, but he'll be doing it for all the right reasons.
Right. There's a book. I've read Timothy Snyder. He writes about dictatorships. He's great. He's got a nice little. It's this thick, folks. Just get the book and read it.
Oh wow, that's
It's about,
great.
Yeah, it's very thin. It's just on. It's about dictatorships. There are 20 things you look out for, what to happen. It's about 5 years late for some people to be reading it, but it would 7 years late actually. But it would be nice if they read it anyway. But there was another book, and I can't remember the name of the writer, but it was. It basically talks about the politics of eternity. Which he says was sort of honed to a fine edge in Russia especially in the Soviet Union, where the state told people, look, your life is going to be shit. Okay. You're gonna have to wait in long lines for the necessities of life because we just don't have the system to give it to you. I know we promised you that, but it's not happening. All right.
Not happening.
Your life is going to be shit. Get used to it. But we will give you this one thing. We will protect Mother Russia from outside corrupt influences. The corpus of Mother Russia, the virginal purity that is Russia, we will keep safe from those ugly, evil Westerners who want to corrupt it. So just give us what we want. Recognize you're going to be miserable, but you can be proud to be Russian. You can be proud to be Soviet. It's the politics of eternity. I can't give you today, but in the future. Oh, when those glorious sunlit uplands smile upon us, and we'll see how wonderful it is just to be you by virtue of giving us the power to protect you. And I realize...
System in place.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very effective system for people who are hurting. If you tell them, look, I don't really have any answers. I'm giving you bullshit ones, but your life isn't really going to improve. But you can feel good knowing that all those people you hate, I am making them miserable.
Right. P.S. That person who disagreed with me, now one of those people we hate, I'm going to throw them in the gulag. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're giving somebody a kind of a satisfaction that, it's not based on anything.
No.
But it's there for them, and they'll, I guess, be happy with not having very much. But
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't
intoxicating.
know. But sort of, but it wouldn't work here because then we're telling you you're not going to ever have more. And we're white picket fences and better than my neighbor and the American dream. And like, you can always have bigger, and everybody could turn into Kanye West, right? Or whatever that thing is. Like everybody has the ability to be Trump, I guess, you know what I mean? Like be the master of their own destiny. And so I'm not sure if that mentality could ever, God, I hope not work here.
Well,
anyway, we've gotten crazy deep into the politics.
I believe Trump practiced a version of it. I think he practiced a version of that where he said, I'm going to eliminate certain things that have been bothering you and everything's going to be great. Well, he based it on a very vague slogan that Reagan used, Make America Great Again. Mm-hmm. So now they believe that by virtue of him being in office and making, actually, you want to condense it down to one thing? It's liberal tears. Yeah. So if I make the people you don't like angry, then that's enough for you because I can't demonstrate.
That's what I'm saying. Anger, exactly.
I can't demonstrate that the people who voted for them's lives are demonstrably better because he was president. He didn't really deliver the things he said he was going to give them. But boy, do they love seeing the other side be angry. They love that.
And not in power, right? That's exactly it.
Exactly.
They feel more powerful. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But, the kinds of things we agree that people do need, a roof over your head, some sort of meaningful vocation in life. Food.
School for your children.
Health health and food security. Roads, a library. I would like to have a library so people can go and read.
Might be too dangerous though. We might get some ideas or something like that. I don't know. Do we want everyone to have ideas? Yeah, I do. You know what? I really do. I think that's more interesting. I just actually do. But
I know. History is full of times when we tried to not let everyone have ideas, and it never works.
It doesn't
Can't
work.
we learn a little bit? It's hard.
No, we can't. We can't. Honestly, well, no. I mean, I think that this is the problem. Is right. The idea. Look, you and I have been offered a lot more ability to learn than most people have. I think that's fucked. I think everybody should have that ability. That's sort of what our entire country is based on, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it is simply not true that everybody is even going to put themselves in a position where improving is part of their, like just holding on and grabbing and like, insisting that things get to stay exactly the same seems more important to a lot of people than
my theory is provide it and people can accept or reject it. But put it into the charter that it's provided. And then if they don't want it, they don't want it. It's their exercise and freedom to say, I don't want to learn anything new. I don't feel like learning. And
I totally agree.
I know people that hate to read, and they're not dumb people. They just process information differently.
1,000%. Oh, no. And and I'm not even suggesting that there's like a right way to learn.
Oh, yeah, there
is. I don't care if you learn how to redo your house from YouTube. I think that's fantastic, right? Yeah. I don't care if what you want to learn is how to garden and you do it from a book versus you apprentice yourself to like the master gardener at the Buckingham Palace or something. That was a very random example. But you see what, like, I don't care what it is you want to learn. Exactly. And I don't care if you want to learn the Socratic method the way Chris and I obviously would prefer to debate every single thing on the face of the planet, like within a 2.5 hour long period now. Right. But what I do care is that you have the right to do so.
Of
Right. I don't
course.
want to prescribe to you what the thing you need to care about is. And I definitely don't want you to be able to prescribe to me what I get to
Yeah.
care about. Right. That's it for me at the end of the day. That's it.
Well, what's interesting for our experience, I don't know if your kids go to school or if you homeschool, but we homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened naturally for us because of the pandemic. We were very happy sending them to a Montessori school. We liked the way they were learning.
Mm-hmm.
After the pandemic, we realized, well, we can't keep doing these 12 Zoom meetings a day for every class. It's too
No.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
We discovered, oh, our kids are learning pretty fast just directly from us. My wife does most of the work.
Mm-hmm.
But as we start to teach our kids about some of these concepts, you're reteaching yourself. You're
Yeah.
ingraining them. And so we were talking about the Declaration of Independence. And they're noticing, they're not dumb, they're noticing, well, it says all men are created equal. It says, well, yes, at the time, these were far from perfect human beings. They owned slaves, women couldn't vote. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I think...
Or own property. I mean, it was crazy.
Oh, yeah, no, it was,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We were nowhere near the right society. But what they at least discussed and what they even knew was not happening in their own society. But what hopefully would one day come to fruition was the idea that, okay, what they're really talking about is people are all equal in this sense. Like, not everyone is the same intelligence, not everyone has the same physical health, not everyone has the same emotional aptitude. But what everyone has is the inherent worth of being a human being, which means we are all equally deserving of dignity, respect, consideration, and the ability to determine our
Life,
destiny
liberty,
as much
pursuit
as
of
possible.
happiness. Yeah.
So yeah, people misconstrue what all men are created equal is actually supposed to mean,
Agreed.
which is everybody should have the same opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. And of course, a bunch of wealthy white slave owners at the time were only going to get so far, you know,
and look,
even
they
their own
were
thinking
creating.
limited
Yeah.
them.
Of
Yeah.
course, and they were absolutely creating a society that would do that for them. That's what they were doing.
Yeah.
But we've expanded our understanding of that to mean that everybody should have the opportunity to do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing.
exactly. So what
Do
was it like
most-
being Ash?
I was just gonna say, I was like, do most of your interviews go this far down the rabbit hole? It's
This is
fantastic.
exactly the way
So
it is.
good.
It is all about the person I'm talking to. If they want to
Yeah.
go there, I go
Yeah.
everywhere you want to go.
Yeah.
To
I don't
me,
know if I
it's
wanted to go
interesting-
there. It just, I'm like, it doesn't, I don't know. I don't run away from things. I just don't get afraid very often anymore, which
But
is kind of nice.
If the point of these chats or hangs, as I like to call them, is to illuminate the person or people talking, then
Yeah.
we should talk about whatever we want. Now, of course,
Yeah.
by tomorrow we may say, we kind of walked through a couple of minefields there. Maybe we don't want that out there. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't care.
Yeah. Being Ash, that's a really exciting
Yeah.
job.
It's going to end up being a 4-minute interview, and it's only going to be about Ash, and it'll get
gonna be
a
about
million views because nobody wants to
God.
know what I think about Joseph Campbell. But
I don't know. I wanted to know what you think about Joseph Campbell.
well, see, that's the thing is that I have a very small, loyal audience.
Yeah.
They will love watching this. They'll
Good.
love it. That Anna Campbell, my God, she's full of so many interesting ideas
Oh my
and
gosh.
experiences, and she's continuing to do therapy. That's awesome. That's inspiring. You know, it's like Edgerly. He talks about how I did my therapy. Now I practice it every day, but that's it. I don't go back because that's the discipline I was taught. Here's Anna saying, no, you can do it and continue to go back and check in and do it that way. It's like, yeah, it's like they're going to love that.
I'm such a work in progress, and I love that about myself, right? I love talk about like learning
all are.
something new every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, for me, the pandemic, right? So we moved up to Oregon. We'd lost our renters in the house that we owned up here. And yes, I hear the white privilege associated with that 1,000%. And, we moved in here and into a school district that I thought was going to be better for my kids than what we were able to access in LA. And all of that was true. And it was also the place I wanted to film the movie and all these things. But for me, the entire process has been about, okay, how do I continue to grow? right? How
Yeah.
do I continue to find a place where my growth is just as important as everybody else's?
Right.
And, a little more space and a little more distance from our crazy ass industry
Oh,
has made me feel a lot more like a human being again, it really
yeah.
has. And returning to my roots and confronting a lot of the things that made me who I am in a very direct way has been an awesome process, like truly, truly incredible. So yeah, no, I don't believe we're ever done. I don't believe we're
No.
ever finished. I don't believe that I don't like resting on my laurels and
Hmm.
feeling like I've accomplished everything I've set out to accomplish, which does cause me to struggle with, my confidence, because sometimes I feel like I should be doing even more. But I also don't know if I know anyone who's trying as hard as I am to better themselves, right? Or not live in a place where, I'm satisfied with without the idea that there's something more I could put into it. This life
Right.
is cool. Like we're lucky we get to go and
We
explore
are.
this universe that we've
Yeah.
been offered. So I'm gonna do it. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, my wife and I complement each other in this way. Uh, I tend to do less than I should be doing. I savor my laziness sometimes. My wife tends to overbook herself. She
Mm,
tends to be motivated by the concern that she's not doing enough. She doesn't want to be useless because she
mm-hmm.
grew up in her culture in Venezuela in the 70s. She grew up seeing what she thought was a bunch of useless women. They just wanted to be
Mm,
pretty and get a husband and learn how to engage in parlor talk, and that's it. She said these
yeah.
are useless people, and the men are useless for making them want that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like any of this. I don't want to participate in it. So she's constantly wanting to do things, wanting to stay busy, want to be productive. So I encourage her to do a little less, stay balanced, and she encourages me to get off the couch more.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
bring that out of each other so that
Yeah.
we can both, because we agree, uh, all education is ongoing.
Yeah.
You can finish learning about one thing, but there are a lot of other things that are calling your attention that you could learn
Yeah.
about, that you could experience. And I think the more you learn, the more you experience, the more effective a human being you become.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. No, I don't
if
disagree.
there's
Yeah.
I gotta say, if there's a meaning to all this, it would be, if this is what you've been given, don't you want to get the most out of it? Maybe if
Yeah.
we're lucky on the other side of this experience, I don't know, maybe there's another level to it. Maybe there's a
Mhm.
grander connection we make.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't bring myself to be an atheist for that reason, because I
Yeah.
can't prove that nothing happens. I can't prove that
There's
something does.
yeah. There's too much magic out there. Look, energy doesn't disappear. It just
Right.
doesn't, right? It reforms into something else that's created, creates something new. It pushes something forward a different direction. So
Yeah.
I don't know what to call soul. Soul isn't the word that makes the most sense to me, but I don't believe we can just disappear. That's not how matter
Yeah.
works. That's not how energy works. And so yeah, I'm gonna figure out as much as I can while I'm here, and hopefully direct that energy someplace. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's
There's the question, does your consciousness go with you? That's the real question. If everybody was told, okay, you do die, you don't get that body again. Now, but if and that could scare some people. But if you tell
mm-hmm.
someone, but you're going to continue to exist, that would make so many people, myself included, to a degree, it would be comforting. Although Hitchens used to say, what he used to call heaven a celestial North Korea, where
Oh my
he says,
God, that's
where you're
amazing. I didn't know that.
constantly watched. You never
Yeah.
get to die. You have to
Yeah.
continue to exist and be happy
And
all
be
the
good
time.
and be good, whatever
Yeah,
this fucking
everything
good
is
shit
gonna
is. Yeah.
be good. And I remember when I was about 8, I would ask my brother, what happens when we die? Well, you go to heaven. Well, then what? Well, you just keep going. That was disturbing to me.
I totally agree. I
didn't
totally
like
agree.
that.
No, I'm much more comfortable with reincarnation. I love the reincarnation idea and I don't believe this for a second, but my dream
Yeah.
would be that we get reincarnated as everybody. We get to live all of the timelines, every single bug, all of the kitty cats, and all of the elephants, right? Like we get to experience every life that's out there so that we can actually understand fucking anything. Because otherwise, like I don't understand how I'm ever supposed to learn. So I don't know. Consciousness to me is a way of organizing what this body and what this brain does.
Uh-huh.
But I'm super satisfied with the idea that my energy can't disappear completely. So
No.
we have to live on because that's, everything else is just putting everything in a timeline and trying to sort it into a system. But no, you can't. There's no way to go away. That's not how it works. It's just not how it works.
Right, exactly. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's a constant. And so the person has to ask themselves, are you okay with what may or may not happen to your consciousness after that? So who knows? Sam Harris, guy I like to refer to, talks about this. He's more of an atheist, but he says, when people tell me they're sort of disturbed at the idea of not existing. And he says, well, think about the 14.5 billion years up to now, up to the point where you were born, where you didn't exist.
Yeah.
All right. Were you ever aware of it? No. Well, that's what it's going to be like after you die. It'll be just like that 14.5 billion years. And for him, that's a comfort. I don't know if it's comforting to everybody, but I do know that you don't have a say in the matter. It's been decided already.
Look, the most comforting thing to me is focus on the things you can control.
Right. Huh?
You taught me that.
Say that? Yeah, I'm doing a funny voice there. See, I do more than one voice.
Can I just say one other thing?
Yeah.
It was just really nice to get to know you because we haven't gotten to be in the same place, and I haven't gotten to be a part of so many of these amazing, Apex is an amazing group of people. They're so welcoming and loving, and it's a pretty darn good work crew, if I may say so myself.
It is.
And it's hard to be physically away from it. And I'm fortunate because I'm friends with Elle and all these things, but I'd love to be able to get to know everybody better. And I feel like I've finally gotten the opportunity to do that with you. And that's awesome.
I feel the same way. I mean, I'm fundamentally interested in people anyway.
Yes, me too.
And I sense you the same way. But I feel badly that that you don't have the opportunity to do this with a lot of the rest of the cast. That you can't just do a long hang. Although we used to during the pandemic, wasn't regular, but we would have these little Zoom drinks, Zoom cocktails.
Yeah.
And there'd be quite a few of us.
Yeah. The only ones I've been part of have been the signing things and stuff like that, where there's this sort of external, awareness. I'd love to get to know everybody a little bit more on an individual level. It's very cool.
I think that activities are starting to resume.
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
necessarily
what it feels like.
mean we have, we have a better handle on COVID than we did.
Yeah.
But people are still getting it. They're just the therapeutics have improved. More people are vaccinated. They're having better outcomes.
Yeah.
So I think
we're going to be
get-togethers are happening.
We're going to be straight up just living with it pretty soon here. We had it a couple months ago. I'm like, okay, are we now into our? Yeah. It
How'd
just
you
came
do?
back. It was fine. Honestly, we're all vaxxed and boosted and all that kind of stuff. My youngest was the one who wasn't, but it doesn't affect the littles the same way.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you,
they get it out pretty quickly.
Pretty quick. So my husband had gone to a film festival and, it was when things were supposedly low, one person in a room full of people with no masks on is going to give it to everybody. And so he brought it home and that was fine. We're not mad. But me and the little one got it. But our 7-year-old who had just had her second booster never tested
got
positive.
it.
Never tested positive. God bless science.
Well,
right?
Hey, yeah, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But, we can't our jobs will not be able to continue to live in a world where we're afraid to go out in the world. I don't believe that they will.
No.
I think we'll need to be back in booths. I think we'll be needing to be back in person auditions. That's what I think.
You think? Yeah. With voice acting, I don't know how much they're going to continue to use people from everywhere.
Agree.
But we will see. Yeah. You got to give it time to see what the industry decides.
Yeah.
Like I have a professional booth. And I can sound as good as any booth out there as long as my mic is as good as their mic. But not everybody has that.
Right. Yeah, I have, I built myself a little space. It's not as good as every professional room. But when I realized I was looking at whisper rooms and stuff like that, I was like, I could build something that could do that for sure.
Yeah,
so,
I paid. It's not cheap.
Yeah. No, but that's it. That's the investment. That's exactly what it is. I've always said if I really wanted to have a soundproof room, you build a room inside a room and it's got to be over there and it's not going to be something that currently exists in my home. It's going to have to be something outside.
Yeah. Anna Campbell, this has been wonderful and we'll have to do it again. Maybe we'll do it in person. Maybe I'll get people to come out.
Yeah.
We'll do a big pool
that'd be
party
fun.
And yeah, exactly. So,
run around with a microphone. I love it, Chris. That would be awesome. Thank you for having me.
Well, you have a great day and we'll just talk again soon.
Sounds great.
All right.